Kanye Omari West was born on June 8, 1977, in Atlanta, Georgia. When he was just 3 years old, his parents divorced, and he moved with his mother Donda to Chicago. Donda West, an English professor, was the guiding force in his life, encouraging his creativity and determination. His father, Ray West, had once been a Black Panther and later became a respected photojournalist. From this unusual mix of influences, Kanye developed both intellectual ambition and a restless, rebellious spirit. As a child, he showed an early love for art and music, and by his teenage years, he was producing beats on borrowed equipment, determined to carve out his place in the world of hip-hop. By the mid-1990s, Kanye was already making a name for himself in Chicago's underground music scene. He experimented with sampling soul records and layering them with heavy drum patterns, a sound that would later define his production style. In 2001, his big break arrived when he produced several tracks for Jay-Z's landmark album The Blueprint. Songs like Izzo HOVA showcased Kanye's signature sound and cemented him as one of the most sought-after producers in the industry. But Kanye didn't want to be only behind the scenes. He dreamed of being a rapper in his own right, and he refused to let industry executives tell him he didn't have the voice or image for it. In 2004, Kanye released his debut album The College Dropout, which instantly proved his critics wrong. With themes of self-belief, education, family, and faith, the album resonated with millions. It won him multiple Grammy Awards and established him as a unique voice in hip-hop. Over the next few years, he released Late Registration and Graduation, each one expanding his artistic vision. By the time My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy arrived in 2010, critics were calling it one of the greatest albums of all time. Kanye wasn't just a rapper. He was a cultural architect shaping sound, fashion, and conversation. But his rise was never without controversy. In 2009, during the MTV Video Music Awards, Kanye stormed the stage and interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech, declaring that Beyoncé deserved the award. The incident went viral long before the term viral was standard. It showed the world Kanye's volatile mix of ego, passion, and unpredictability. For some, this was evidence of his genius refusing to follow rules. For others, it was the start of a pattern of public outbursts that would eventually overshadow his brilliance. Kanye's ambitions extended far beyond music. He often compared himself to Steve Jobs and Walt Disney, and in 2015, he launched Yeezy sneakers in partnership with Adidas. Yeezy quickly became a phenomenon. Stores sold out within minutes, resale markets exploded, and sneaker culture entered a new era. Kanye was no longer just a musician, he was a fashion mogul. He later partnered with Gap, collaborated with Balenciaga, and appeared in Vogue, placing himself firmly in the center of high fashion. By 2020, Forbes estimated his net worth at more than $2 billion, officially declaring him a billionaire. Kanye had turned his personal brand into a global empire. Yet even at the peak of his success, instability followed him. In 2016, he appeared at Trump Tower wearing a red MAGA hat and expressing support for Donald Trump, shocking much of his fan base. In 2020, he launched an impulsive presidential campaign, holding rallies where he broke down in tears while making bizarre claims. His openness about his bipolar disorder brought sympathy from some, but concern from others. His album Ye famously featured the line, "I hate being bipolar, it's awesome," highlighting both his humor and his struggle. What was once seen as eccentricity began to look more like a dangerous spiral. In October 2022, that spiral reached its breaking point. Kanye began posting anti-Semitic statements on Twitter and Instagram, claiming he was going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. He repeated these sentiments in interviews, praising Hitler and promoting conspiracy theories. What might once have been dismissed as provocation now crossed into hate speech. Almost immediately, Twitter and Instagram suspended his accounts. Celebrities, politicians, and business leaders denounced him. Public opinion shifted overnight, and the man once celebrated as a creative genius was now condemned as a promoter of hate. The business consequences were immediate and brutal. On October 24, 2022, Adidas announced it was ending its partnership with Kanye West. The Yeezy line had accounted for nearly 8% of Adidas's annual revenue, but the reputational damage was too great. For Kanye, the personal impact was catastrophic. Forbes cut him from the billionaire list, reporting that his fortune had fallen from over $2 billion to about $400 million in a single day. Gap ended its collaboration. Balenciaga cut ties, and Vogue announced it would no longer work with him. In less than 1 week, Kanye's business empire collapsed. At the same time, his personal life was unraveling. His marriage to Kim Kardashian, once portrayed as the ultimate celebrity power couple, had ended in divorce. The separation was messy and very public. Kanye accused Kim of blocking him from seeing their children, mocked her new partner Pete Davidson, and shared private conversations on social media. Instead of sympathy, the public saw desperation and obsession. The more Kanye tried to control the narrative online, the worse his image became. Meanwhile, his other ventures fell apart. Donda Academy, a private school he founded in honor of his mother, shut down after reports of chaotic management and lack of accreditation. Banks closed accounts linked to his businesses. Longtime collaborators distanced themselves. For an artist who once seemed untouchable, the speed of the collapse was shocking. Within months, Kanye West went from billionaire visionary to cultural exile. And yet, despite the downfall, Kanye's influence cannot be erased. His album shaped modern hip-hop, his sneakers reshaped fashion, and his fearless ambition inspired millions. Some fans still see him as a misunderstood genius, unfairly punished for speaking his mind. But his story is also a stark reminder that creativity does not excuse hate, and wealth cannot protect someone from the consequences of their own actions. Kanye West once had everything: music, fashion, money, power, and influence. In just 24 hours, he lost it all. His rise and fall is one of the most dramatic in modern culture, a story that shows how quickly empires built on reputation and trust can collapse. Ultimately, Kanye was not brought down by competitors or enemies, but by his own words. He became his own worst enemy. The tragedy of Kanye West is also a mirror for our society. It shows how fame magnifies flaws, how social media rewards outrage, and how quickly public opinion can shift. His story forces us to ask, how do we separate genius from responsibility? How much can we forgive in the name of art? And at what point do we hold even our most talented icons accountable for the damage they cause? Kanye's empire may be gone, but his legacy will continue to be debated for decades. Was he a genius who lost control, or a provocateur who finally went too far? Perhaps he was both. What is certain is that his collapse will be studied as a lesson in the power of words, the fragility of fame, and the speed at which billions can disappear. Kanye West's life is a cautionary tale. It shows that even the brightest stars can burn out, that success without balance can turn into self-destruction, and that in the digital age, downfall can come overnight. For years, he wanted the world to call him a god. In the end, the world remembered he was only human, flawed, fragile, and ultimately responsible for his own fall. Even after his empire collapsed, Kanye refused to disappear. In 2023, he tried to relaunch his career independently, teasing new music and hinting at fresh fashion ventures. But without Adidas, the Yeezy brand lost its global reach, and without major backing, his influence in style and culture shrank almost overnight. For the first time in decades, Kanye no longer dictated trends, he was chasing them. Controversy still followed. He appeared alongside far-right figures, gave interviews doubling down on his most offensive remarks, and alienated even longtime supporters. Former collaborators like Jay-Z, Kid Cudi, and John Legend kept their distance. The man who once filled arenas now seemed increasingly isolated, both personally and professionally. Financially, the picture was bleak. Without Adidas, reports said his annual revenue dropped by hundreds of millions. Properties he once flaunted, ranches in Wyoming, mansions in Los Angeles, became costly burdens. Lawsuits and unpaid debts grew. For someone who had once promised to become the richest black man in history, the collapse was staggering. His personal life remained turbulent. Though the divorce from Kim Kardashian was finalized, conflicts about co-parenting spilled into public view. Kanye continued to post erratically about his children, while Kim spoke openly about the challenges of raising them under constant media pressure. For fans, what once looked like raw honesty now felt like painful self-destruction. And yet, Kanye's artistic legacy endured. His albums still streamed in the millions, and his sound remained a foundation for modern hip-hop. Younger artists cited him as an inspiration, and tracks like Stronger and Runaway lived on as cultural touchstones. This created a paradox. Kanye, the artist, was still celebrated, even as Kanye, the man, was condemned. By 2024, Kanye West was no longer central, but he was not irrelevant either. He existed as both a warning and an influence, a man remembered as much for his downfall as for his genius. His story shows that brilliance and chaos can exist in the same person, and that even the brightest stars can fall faster than anyone imagines.